Hello and welcome back to REV Endurance Sports and another edition of What is in Our Stand Today. This is a topic that gets a lot of conversation going, and there's always someone who says, well, you should be able to see that, or they should be a tool you can use to measure your worn chain rings. And there may be a tool out there that someone has made at home, or maybe a new tool that I've never heard about and it's released now. But the best thing to do is look at your chain ring, and in the industry we call it shark's teeth. If the tips of your chain ring are really pointy, that's not good. They should have flat tops. So I will show you that, and I'll contrast the new chain ring and the old chain ring so you can see the difference. It is dramatic when a chain ring is worn. Now, what are some of the symptoms that you may encounter that would lead you to think that you have a worn chain ring? Well, let's say you're at a stop sign, stoplight, steep hill, and you put power down on the pedals. You're in the big chain ring, and it slips off the chain slips off the big chain ring and falls into the little ring, or even into the frame. That could be a worn chain ring and or a worn chain. So now you replace the chain because that's a little bit more affordable. You get out on the road again. Oh, chain is still slipping. That's definitely a worn chain ring now. So a lot of times, if you just keep your chains fresh, you may never need to replace your chain rings. Personally, I have never replaced my chain rings on any of my bikes. I ride about 10,000 miles per year. I climb about 1,000,000 feet per year. You can follow my Strava down below. I have never replaced my chain rings. All I've ever done is replace chains and cassettes. And even cassettes I don't replace that often. So just keep your chains fresh. And the common knowledge is basically every 2 chains you replace a cassette and or chain rings. Maybe every 3 chains replace your cassette and your chain rings. So it could be expensive, but at least if you budget it and you kind of work your way into it, you're like, okay, well, I've done 2 chains now. All right, maybe by the 3rd chain I'm going to replace it, so it doesn't catch you by surprise. Oftentimes people come in and they're like, really? All that stuff is worn? They don't realize, yes, it's made out of metal. Metal against metal wears itself out and creates this type of scenario. So in the industry, we call these shark teeth. They're really pointy. And let me show you what I mean. So this right here is the chain ring that is installed on the customer's bike. You can see how pointy each one of these teeth are, right? So we're going to go all the way around. And again, since I'm shooting by myself, here's the chain tool that I already put on there. But yeah, I mean, there's just nothing stopping this chain tool. So that chain is completely wore out. So when the chain wears out, it starts to wear other parts out pretty significantly. Okay. Now let's compare this worn chain ring to a new chain ring. And let me see if I can position this in the same orientation so you can see. Because one thing that folks may not be aware of is that the chain ring teeth have different profiles. So depending on the orientation of the chain ring, you may have some teeth that are pointy and some teeth that are flat topped. So can you see that? The difference there between this being the new chain ring, nice flat tops. There's also some machining, some scalloping on each of these teeth. And look at the teeth behind it, just super pointy. And that is an example of a worn chain ring and a new chain ring. Now I know there's going to be a lot of discussion down below. Oh, that's fine. Just replace this. Just replace the chain and keep going. I beg to differ. This, if you put a new chain on this, you are going to be slipping. That chain, you could cause physical harm to yourself. If you're a mechanic, you can cause physical harm to your customers. So this is a very, well, not very, but it is worn. It is very obvious that it is worn. It's not the worst I've seen, but it's definitely a good example of a worn chainring. So we're going to replace a chainring, replace the chain. The inner chainring hasn't had much use. The customer told me, I stay basically in my big ring. I ride the coast. We've got a lot of corrosion on the chain, so it needed to go anyway. One thing to keep in mind too is pulleys. At some point, because your pulleys are made out of plastic, they will get worn as well. And that, especially this bottom one, your tension pulley, see these tops are nice and square, so we're still good. When this pulley wears out, the chain doesn't have enough tension and your shifting will be off as well. So just keep an eye on your pulleys. So that's all for today. And let me see if I can do this real quick. Another test that I've done in the past is I just put the chain on the chain ring, and if there's a lot of slop side to side, or if the chain just doesn't fall into the teeth, then I know it also needs to get replaced. And maybe we'll do the educational, a little bit more educational stuff too. When your chain gets worn, what happens is it no longer falls right here in this valley. Okay? So if the chain no longer falls right here in this valley, it starts to fall on these teeth here and starts wearing them down. It should just fall, boom, boom. Each chain roller should fall right inside here. But when it starts to get worn or elongated, then it just doesn't fall in there anymore. And it starts shaving this off and starts creating these points that I was talking about. Okay, one last time before I call this a wrap. You can see again the worn chain ring and the flat tops on the new chain ring right there. Okay, thank you so much for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. Please pass on and share my videos with other folks. And please consider subscribing. Oftentimes it's 95% of my viewers, when I look at the analytics, they are unsubscribed. So I'd like you to come along on this journey with me as we build this channel. So please like and subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything. And in the meantime, we'll see you up the road.